All aboard! Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, football fans of all ages, I am Beast Mike. You have now arrived in my train of thought. It's time to talk about week 11 of the NFL season. I know this season always goes by way too fast, but we're going to not waste any more time and get to business. Now, the rivalries uniforms, I will say, have come out pretty good thus far. I kind of like Arizona's. I really do like Miami's, and not out of bias. I really do like theirs. Buffalo's, I thought, was clean, especially the presentation of their whiteout deal that they did for their game. And now we get the Patriots. It's their turn. And I kind of like theirs. I see where they were going with Revolutionary War style. I think it works. I can live with it. And what I could also live with is how New England played in said uniforms. They played well. They were really good against the Jets, even after the Jets actually started out really well. It was a great opening series for the Jets. They burned a bunch of clock, and Justin Fields looked competent. And that running touchdown really punctuated it and made it look nice. Unfortunately, the Patriots immediately went right back down the field with relative ease. And as you can see, the star of the night was Travion Henderson, who has been spectacular as of late since the Ramondre Stevenson injury. New England's 1-2 punch of rookie Henderson and sophomore May have reignited the Patriots' abilities and have shown themselves to be, okay, they got something serious. Now, sure, they are schedule merchants, no question. They've faced a lot of weak opponents and to get to 9-2, but they are 9-2. Yeah, they'll be tested when they face the Bills again, but they are 9-2, and they're going to have a very high seed in the AFC inevitably. As for the Jets, they prove once again that as long as your team isn't based in Ohio, you're probably going to beat the Jets. This is what we've learned thus far in this NFL season, one of many things. Another thing that we've learned in this NFL season is that the International Series has had some hits and some misses. This was a miss that was kind of sort of a hit when it came to its drama. So, as I mentioned in my Tua Trade video, this was Mr. Me Too, a Spider-Man meme. It was a ball don't lie situation. A lot happened in this Dolphins Commander game. Not a lot of scoring, but a lot happened when it came to teams getting yards. Both teams ran the ball fairly well, especially Miami. They got the ball down the field pretty efficiently. Washington committed third and longs a lot. It was a very good game when it came to getting yards. Not a lot for getting touchdowns, though. Goal line stands aplenty. There were two by the Commanders, one by the Dolphins. The last one of this game was by after Mike McDaniel's idiotic decision to not just take the three and go up 16-13 in regulation. Instead, they got bailed out because the Commanders couldn't make field goals. They missed two of them and went to overtime. I think the Dolphins did the right thing in saying, hey, we'll play defense first. Good call by Tua and whoever else decided this. And then we get the ball don't lie moment where Jack Jones, who got called for the most egregious pass interference of the day, the ball was overthrown and thrown behind him, and it was somehow called for pass interference with minor contact, didn't impede the route. For some reason, instead of this pass interference being called, it would have been 3rd and 11 from the Commanders' 5, Miami may get the ball back before halftime, and instead of that, Washington gets the first half of their double-up, where they kicked the field goal before the break, and then scored a touchdown coming out of the break, thanks to Deebo Samuel. But now we fast forward to the overtime and the ball don't lie moment. First play of said OT, Marcus Mariota throws his worst pass of the day, easily, and throws it right to Jack Jones, who then did the Sue celebration, the Ronaldo celebration, those who may not know, and then the game was effectively over from there. Devon Achane and company were able to get the ball into proper field goal range for Riley Patterson. Patterson didn't miss. Miami keeps it moving. And I don't know if Miami is going to make the playoffs. It feels like they're going to run out of time, but they are 4-7 after a 2-7 start. They've won 3 of their last 4. They've looked better lately. They're running the ball a lot and tremendously well, but Devon Achane, who's been spectacular this year. They are starting to move in a proper direction, and Mike McDaniel will probably save his job, even with the idiotic decision to go for it and some of the crazy decisions that he tends to make. For Washington, your season was already dead, and it's been dead for a while now. You've lost 5 straight or so. It's bad. It's going bad, and it's getting progressively worse. We're going to stay in the AFC East and finish up in this division with Buffalo and Tampa. Yes, this was the best game of the 1 o'clocks, which normally I go last with, but it just seems to flow right when it comes to the rest of the AFC East. So we did get the Josh Allen experience where he was terrible with the NOs that he throws. He threw 2 of them. It wasn't looking great. And we did get the experience of the Bills' inability to stop the run. As I've mentioned so many times this year, Buffalo's not good at it. If you can run the football, if you're competent enough to do that, you can go to work against Buffalo, and Tampa Bay absolutely did. They ran for over 200 yards against the Bills. And a guy by the name of Sean Tucker, maybe in your program somewhere, number 44 in your program, number 1 in some people's hearts. He had 3 tutties. He ran for $106 and spearheaded the charge when it came to running on the Bills. He also had a receiving touchdown. Buffalo really couldn't withstand a lot of the punches for 3 quarters from Tampa as they punched and counterpunched each other on the scoreboard. And then Josh Allen and company took over. And Josh Allen said, that's enough of that. I'm going to put on the cape and say, let's go to work. 6 tutties for Josh Allen. He threw for 4 of them. He ran for the other 2. Keon Coleman did none of these things because he was benched. And the Bills' offense seemed to flow very well without him and handle a 40-piece on a pretty good Tampa team. Although I will say this about Tampa, they are looking a little sluggish as of late. And they have kind of allowed the division to catch up to them. More on said division in a little bit. In the meantime, between time, for Buffalo, they keep up with New England. They know a showdown is looming. Can Buffalo catch the Patriots? And can New England slip up against their really bad schedule? As for Tampa, their division foes played each other in Atlanta. Well, 2 of them anyway. New Orleans was off. Atlanta and Carolina had their rematch after a few weeks ago where Atlanta got shut out 30-0, and things kind of went really bad from there for the Falcons. In this case, Atlanta at least scored points. They scored a lot of them, 27 of them to be exact. Unfortunately for them, Carolina had a reverse card, and this was in the form of Bryce Young having the best day of his NFL career. He was spectacular in this game, and probably the best player on the field, regardless of team. Ted McMillan also balled out, and that's something that we really needed to see more of. Ted McMillan doing his thing, 130 yards, 2 tugs. Good work from Ted McMillan. Atlanta actually did stop the run, which is weird considering Atlanta's strength on defense is their pass defense. And Bryce lit them up like Christmas trees. Don't put your Christmas tree up until after Thanksgiving. Instead, it was Atlanta locking down Rico Dowdle and company, and it was Atlanta getting cooked by Bryce Young and company. Kind of odd. Of course, Atlanta had a lead by a couple of scores late in this game, and then they ended up blowing it because Falcons. Of course they did. Of course they lost this game. And part of that probably because they also lost Mike Penix. He's going to be out for the season again with a knee injury. That kind of sucks because he's been actually fairly healthy in the NFL up until this year. And now he is going to sit out and be done for the rest of this year, which means Kirk Cousins had to step in. And Atlanta, though they won the toss in overtime, did nothing with it, giving Carolina the opportunity to get down the field again to finish this out. And they did, thanks to a long catch and run by Tremble, and that was pretty much blouses. Carolina kicks the field goal. Carolina wins the game. Atlanta's season is basically buried. This has been a really rough month for the Falcons, as what was promising is now struggling. They've lost 5 straight, and their season's basically dead. As for the Panthers, you are in a real good spot in the NFC South. You're only a half game behind Tampa, and you've got a real chance to catch and pass and beat them because you see them twice in the last 3 weeks. The last of which in Tampa. This could be a fun month, though. Carolina's schedule down the stretch is not nice at all. But that's more of a power rankings thing I'm going to talk about. We'll stay in the South and go from NFC to AFC. And this game between Tennessee and Houston was kind of boring. And if you weren't a Titans or Texans fan, I'd understand if you didn't watch it and pay attention. But things did happen in this game. One of which being that Cam Ward wasn't too bad. He looked sort of promising. One of which, being Davis Mills, was okay. It wasn't spectacular by any means, because you wouldn't get that from Davis Mills, but you got a decent game out of him. And you got Houston with a late lead in this game. And then Cam Ward made the kind of drive that you would expect a number 1 overall pick to make. Good. Tie game, 90 seconds to go. Can Tennessee get this to overtime? No. They did not. Houston went down the field. Davis Mills made it happen, and the Texans were able to kick a field goal to close this out. And Houston is now suddenly rising from the ashes, and the Texans might have a halfway decent shot of making the postseason. Like Carolina, Houston's schedule down the stretch is not nice. I will talk about their next opponent tomorrow, but their schedule down the stretch features a lot of teams that are going to be desperate and trying to make the playoffs. They get a grace period with the Cardinals and Raiders, but everybody else in their schedule, they're going to try to make the playoffs, and they still got the Colts on their schedule twice. Good luck, Houston. You're going to need all of it. Tennessee, you're still in line to get the first pick in the draft and either help for Ken Ward on the offensive side or a game-changing defensive player, which you so desperately need to help Jeffrey Simmons out with. Now, there were beatdowns this week, and I'm going to let the kids talk to him about this one.
Stop! He's already dead.
Thank you very much. And LA Chargers, question. What was this? How did this happen? I know that's multiple questions. Why did you let this happen? I don't get this. This was not the kind of performance I was expecting from a Chargers team that needs to stack wins and stay in the wildcard playoff race and or stay afloat with the Broncos in the AFC West. But this beatdown was close, and then Jacksonville said that's enough of that, and it was not close. And the Jaguars proceeded to smash LA with relative ease and relative quickness. Justin Herbert was under siege, even though he was sacked twice, only twice in this game. It felt like he was under siege for quite a bit, and it felt like the Charger defense had no answers for what Jacksonville was doing, regardless of their injuries at receiver. It's not that Trevor Lawrence was spectacular in this game. He wasn't. He threw for 150 some odd yards. Okay, fine. Jacksonville's run game basically matched him in terms of yards. That's not something you want to allow of your defense. And we kind of got a throwback to the Brandon Staley days where the Chargers' run defense didn't exist. And you could just run all over them at will as much as you want to. That's kind of what happened here. Justin Herbert only throwing for 81 yards. I don't recommend it. I don't think that's a great look for a team that is supposed to try to make the playoffs. Not a great look. Jacksonville keeps up with the AFC South brethren that is Houston and the Colts, who are off, so they kind of gain a half game there. That's fine. But for the Chargers, this was a rough loss. And it kind of begs the question, will the Chargers run out of bodies before the playoffs and before the regular season ends? Can they still get there? We'll need to know the answer to that soon enough. From one side of the country to the other, we're going to go to New York for this one. Packers and Giants. This, I expected to be one of the games in beatdown territory, but we never got there. And we got there because Jameis Winston, who I would argue is kind of that spouse of yours, whether you're into dudes or you're into women. I'm obviously into the latter, but we ain't talking about that right now. What we're talking about is Jameis Winston, who's that person that's like, he's gonna give you excitement. He's gonna give you that flash, that thrill, that is gonna spike your emotions, that lightning bolt of energy. It's like, oh, he's fun. Like, it's never a dull moment. Everything is cool. But then there's that moment in time, and this is where the turnovers come in, and it's like, you know they're coming, and you know that they're going to freak out or crash out or just fly off the handles, and once that happens, there's almost no going back. You know it's coming, it's just a matter of when it happens. And that's the kind of what happened here when it came to this game. Jameis Winston was pretty solid for a lot of it. He had his moments where he tempted fate. He almost threw a few innos, and then things were looking kind of questionable at times. Packers field goal kickers were missing kicks left and right. Josh Jacobs was getting hurt. Like, there were some injuries in this game. Jordan Love was injured and came back. It was a mess. This game was an absolute mess, except for the Giants uniforms. They're pretty sweet. Anyway, the Giants were able to stay in this game as long as they could until Christian Watson made a spectacular catch towards the end of it. I can't believe he caught that touchdown in double coverage. It was amazing. And then after that, we got the Jameis Winston, who flies off the handle and crashes out. The NO that sealed it, and then the fumble by Micah Parsons, fumble forced by Parsons, who didn't show up until the very end in terms of like making an impact play, but Parsons did show up to make the impact play at the end. Good look on his part. Green Bay wins a game that was way uglier than it needed to be, but it was a win. And for the Giants, I think this is the best case scenario. You take your L, you move up the draft position so you can get either wide receiver help or get an offensive line up because you need the latter in the worst possible way. So the Packers win, and they keep up with their NFC North brethren as the Division of Doom continues to evolve. Now the Bears, who are at the front of the line here, are going to have to hold off the Vikings. This was not easy. J.J. McCarthy, or number 9 as he for some reason is called, threw a couple of in-those, though one was really nice. He threw one to Kevin Byard, which was pretty good, but the one in the end zone was also pretty sweet. It was a great play by the defense. McCarthy also threw his share of good passes, or at least passes to the Vikings, one of which was a touchdown to Addison. Good stuff there. Justin Jefferson kind of locked down in this game. That's not great, but the Bears and Vikings played a pretty good, evenly matched game for the majority of it. Caleb Williams was decent. Mona Guy continues to do his thing and be the nice thunder compliment to DeAndre Swift, who was back and showing the lightning. Good work there. This game effectively flipped after the Vikings had scored to tie the game with a long kick return by the Bears, at which point the Bears were able to just get down the field and make it happen and then kick the game-winning field goal, which by a Bear kicking the game-winning field goal, you wouldn't expect it, but in this case, it happened. Good work by Chicago. They were in first in the NFC North. The question being, by nightfall, will they be first alone? Well, Detroit and Eagles are going to have to determine that. Minnesota? Things are getting a little dicey in terms of making the playoffs. You might be running out of time on that front because this losing streak you're on is not healthy for your situation. It's been kind of rough lately. This is with McCarthy or Carson Wentz for that matter. Can the Vikings somehow get back on track? They're going to need to. I may talk about their game tomorrow. Or today, as it were, or as it will be. From one north to the other, Bengals, Steelers, and we got to talk about this game in so many different fronts. First and foremost, we got to talk about Darnell Washington removing souls from the Bengals and then taking them to the shadow realm in various ways. I mean, he baptized one and truck stick 2 others. I mean, those men had families, Darnell Washington. An all-time angry run, maybe the angriest run we're going to see for a while. This was absolutely amazing to watch and see happen. Ruthless stuff by Darnell Washington. Beautiful stuff to see that. You love to see carnage like this, unless you're a Bengals fan in this case. Anyway, the other thing that we're going to remember, the other 2 things that we're going to remember are, well, 3 things actually. I should probably remember more stuff. Jamar Chase and Jalen Ramsey, their incident that happened in this game. And Chase apparently spitting on Ramsey after Ramsey threw a punch. All this happened. Ramsey got ejected. Chase got suspended. The latter is going to happen this week, which is a pretty sizable development considering they're playing the Patriots, Cincinnati, and the Bengals need all the wins they can get to make Joe Burrow's return even meaningful at all, to be straight up. And without Chase, it kind of looked off, to be honest. Joe Flacco didn't dice up the Steelers like he did a couple weeks ago, but we did have a nice touchdown to T. Higgins. We never really got there with Flacco and company this time. Why? Because the Steelers defense decided we're going to pick up the sticks and do what we need to do. Pick 6 by Kyle Duggar, a fumble scoop score later on by the Steelers. 2 defensive tugs on their part. They were needed because Aaron Rodgers didn't play the second half. He broke a bone in his wrist, and he semi-broke a bone in his wrist. He may play this week. We will see. But this was a huge win for a Steelers team that desperately needed it to stay afloat in the AFC North and keep the Ravens off their heels. I'll talk about the Ravens in a sec. But when it comes to the Bengals, I don't think it's worth Joe Burrow coming back at this point. They're probably going to lose to New England next week, and where are you going to really go here? I think your season's basically cooked, even with Burrow's window still being there for 2 more weeks. I think it's just shut him down. There's almost no point in playing Joe Burrow. What's he coming back for, to be honest? They're going to be eliminated from playoff contention by the time he gets back. Let Joe Flacco ride this out, and then let Flacco retire as a Bengal, I guess. Now we're going to go to the other AFC North teams and go to Cleveland for this one. Bengals, Ravens, and this turned into a street fight. And it was because Myles Garrett continued to stay in God mode. Another 4-sack day from Myles Garrett. And can we start talking about Myles Garrett and potentially breaking the sack record for a season? I mean, 21.5 is the record. Can we talk about Myles Garrett having a real shot to get there? Because I think he does. And it wouldn't shock me at all if he did get there. We could also talk about Shedeur Sanders coming in after Dylan Gabriel's concussion. Now, yes, sure, Shedeur was not great. He was not good, even. He was bad, you could say. I do think he'll be eventually better. I would like to think that when he gets more first-team reps in practice, because he's probably playing this week, that he will be better. he just wasn't that great this week. He didn't really do much of anything efficient, one would say. That's fine. I think he'll be better going forward once he gets first-team reps. But the play of the game happened because of the Ravens having the ball and Lamar Jackson not getting the snap for it. Fourth down, crucial play in the game after this game was tied, after Cleveland played really good defense, after they scored a pick six, by the way, in said game. Lamar Jackson did not take the snap here on this tush-push. Instead, it was on this Baltimore budge, this fake Baltimore budge. We got Mark Andrews taking the snap and doing a spin move and going to the crib near side. It was a tremendous play and a great play call by Todd Monken to make that happen. And if this, and maybe only this, was the reason why Baltimore was able to escape this game with the W. I do think the Ravens are going to come back and win this division eventually. They got Pittsburgh twice. But for that to happen, they're going to have to play much better than this against Cleveland. It wasn't great. Cleveland basically dragged them into the deep waters in Lake Erie, but Baltimore came out swimming on the other side. At least Baltimore got that. For Cleveland, not great. Not a good performance at all. It just didn't work out, at least offensively. Your defense kept you in this game. You have a real good defense. But for Shedeur, it just wasn't hitting yet. It may hit this week against the Raiders in a game I'll probably talk about tomorrow. Only one late game, that's in the 4 o'clock slate, was worthy of beatdown. And we're going to need the kids to talk to him one more time, please.
Stop! He's already dead.
Thank you once again. And it was Cardinals and it was Niners. And the Niners got their lick back, and they also got Brock Purdy back. This was a good thing for San Francisco. Not that Mac Jones wasn't bad, but we obviously know they're gonna play Purdy and try to see if he's worth the $57 million that he got in his deal. And this past week, he indeed was. He played really well. It also doesn't hurt to have your two best offensive players do what they do. They scored 5 times between them, Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle. They were absolutely dominant against the Cardinals, whose season is basically dying and is pretty cooked because of all the losses they had by 1 score. This was not one of those. Just like last week against Seattle, this was a beatdown. And it takes away from a Jacoby Brissett day where he had 47 completions, which is setting a record for said stat. They gave up 45 points, though. That defense, that's not going to cut it. For the Niners, good win. You keep up with the rest of the NFC West, which I will get to in 3, 2, 1. One of the games of the day, and we expected it to be. Seattle, one of the hottest defenses in the game. LA Rams, the hottest offense in the game. But it was the Rams defense that really turned up the heat on Sam Darnold. And it continues a pattern that we've known about Darnold. When it's showtime, go time, when it's time to play a big game, Sam Darnold's one of the dudes that comes up real small. He did this twice last year in back-to-back weeks, where it might as well have been a playoff game between the Vikings and Lions, where the winner gets the 1 seed and the loser's the 5 seed. And Sam Darnold didn't show up at all. He was not good in that game. And the Lions clamped up the Vikings completely, ended up as the 1 seed, and away they go. The next week, they played said Rams. This is when Darnold was a Viking, and Darnold once again played terrible. It wouldn't matter whether it was in California, whether it was in Arizona, where the game actually took place, or it was on the moon. It wouldn't have mattered. Sam Darnold played like trash. It was not happening. The Rams dominated him. Well, the Rams saw this and said, hey, we can dominate him in a different way. And they did. 4 NOs in this game by Darnold. Now, one of them wasn't his fault, sure. But 4 NOs is not a good way to go. And even with all of this, the Seattle defense also showed up. Yes, Kyron Williams got his obligatory tutty, sure. But Seattle's defense kept it close and kept them in it as long as they could. They fought back on offense thanks to Kenneth Walker with a touchdown, but they were able to keep things close and they were able to fight back into this game and make this come down to the very end of it. A little bit of time came off the clock. The clock management was interesting for Seattle, but they made it work. They were able to get down the field and get Jason Myers any sort of shot to win this game from about 61 yards or so. Unfortunately for him, the kick went very, very right. It was not good at all, and they weren't going to win this game because of it. So the Rams were able to get this done. It was their defense that carried it, despite a really down day from Puka Nacua, and a kind of sort of down day from JSN for the Seattle sake. This was a really good statement win for the Rams. I don't love their rivalry jerseys as you see here, but this was a really good win for the Rams. And yeah, they're going to run it back in a couple weeks, these two teams. But For the Rams, they needed this to stay on top, to get to the top of the NFC West. I think Seattle will have something to say about it when they go to the Emerald City in due time. But still, this was a good win for Los Angeles, and they move forward in what's becoming a pretty competitive three-team race in the NFC West. From NFC to AFC, Kansas City and Denver, and a Denver team that has shown themselves to not be afraid of the Chiefs. Yes, they've had their struggles against Kansas City over the years, and legitimately speaking, they've only beaten Kansas City once in the Mahomes era. That was a couple of years ago. Last year happened, but obviously Kansas City didn't play anybody, so they kind of gave Denver a free win. This one wasn't free. Denver had to earn this one, and Denver's defense did everything they could to earn it. Mahomes was sluggish again. He wasn't all that great. He got away with some innos because of some pretty not suspect calls, but some penalties that happened. There were a lot of them in this game, 10 apiece. One of them took away a pick six, one of them on Denver, took away a pick six, but eventually led to an inno anyway, as Pat Mahomes continues to kind of throw some rough passes, especially in the red zone. It's not great. Denver's offense, yet again, didn't show up until the very end of it, and part of that because of Kansas City having a good defense. It was good on their part for the Chiefs. We got going in the fourth quarter because both teams scored touchdowns towards the end of the third/fourth. Good stuff there. Travis Kelce had another big game against Denver because, of course, he did. Yet, it was the last couple of drives of the game that helped Denver bring this to the finish line. It was Denver's defense showing up and showing out, getting home against Mahomes and causing 3-and-outs. And it was Denver's last drive on offense that obviously brought this game to its conclusion. Clutch throws by Bo Nix because he has shown himself to be maybe the most clutch quarterback in the NFL when it comes to fourth quarter success. And then they were able to bang it home at the very end of the game thanks to Will Lutz kicking the game-winning field goal. It wasn't blocked this time, and ironically, it was Kansas City having an extra point block earlier on in this game. Instead, this was Will Lutz bringing it home with a game-winning field goal, and Denver getting the signature win I think they really needed. I think everybody wanted Denver to go get if they were going to really legitimize themselves and prove themselves to be a worthy team. 9-2, and they've beaten both Super Bowl champions. Good luck for Denver. For Kansas City, in terms of them getting back to the Super Bowl, it's going to be real tough for them to do it now that they don't have too many tiebreakers left. In fact, they don't have any tiebreaker against any team that's in the NFL playoffs as of this moment in time. One of which would include their Super Bowl 57 and 59 opponent in the Eagles, who played Detroit on Sunday Night Football. Now, I would argue that the best individual player was probably Jahmyr Gibbs. He played tremendously well. He had 100-plus yards receiving. He was outstanding on the field, whether he was running the football or he was catching it. He was great. I would argue that this game kind of turned with the Jameson Williams play. Jameson Williams made a spectacular play to score a touchdown. It was great. It was good to see that. And he also was the perpetrator of what was a terrible penalty to have. He tried to dive onto the goalpost and try to slide down it like he was a firefighter of some kind. That 15-yard penalty on sportsmanlike conduct sent back Detroit to the 50 for a 51-yard extra point. And because the winds were howling at Lincoln Financial Field on Sunday night, Bates missed the kick, and it felt like the momentum kind of shifted towards the Eagles' favor. Jake Elliott did what he could in making kicks, and a 50-yarder late in this game with the winds howling. And the other part to this was the fourth downs. Detroit went for 5 of them. 3 of them were 3rd and 1 or better, or 4th and 1 or closer. They didn't get any of them. In part because the Eagles defense bowed up and stood up to the Lions' really good offensive line. They did a tremendous job on short yardage situations the entire night, whether Detroit went for it or not. They were really good on 3rd downs against the Lions. And they were really good against Jared Goff, for that matter, as they had him under siege, even though they were only really rushing 4 for a lot of this game. They were really good against Goff, who, once again, on big game situations, away from domes or Los Angeles, Jared Goff's a little sus. Hey, gotta keep it a buck. He is not the greatest when it comes to non-climate controlled situations and atmospheres when it comes to big games. Not the greatest there. What's also not that great is the Eagles' offense as a whole. And yes, their offensive line's not 100% healthy. Lane Johnson's going to be out for a month, which is a killer injury. But their offensive line didn't hold up super well as well in this game, as the Lions were able to stuff Saquon Barkley a lot in this matchup. And their defensive line actually did fairly well on their end. So it was no shame for the Lions defense to keep this game close. The problem is their offense couldn't do anything aside from Jahmyr Gibbs. And the egregious pass interference towards the end of this that effectively ended the game, it was the second worst pass interference call of the night, was downright awful because foolishly, and I figured this was coming, a third down where the Eagles could run the ball and burn Detroit's last time out. Sirianni says, I'm going to throw for it, and he gets away with it because of a terrible pass interference. And it shouldn't have happened this way. Detroit should have had one last shot. Not that I thought they were going to win with it, but they should have had one more shot. It didn't go down. The Eagles remain top of the NFC and now have all the cards effectively when it comes to getting the 1 seed. Detroit may have to come back to Philly. I don't like the chances if they do. And one last time this week, because there was one other beatdown and we all should have seen it coming. Kids, can you please stay up late and handle this business for me?
Stop! He's already dead.
I appreciate you. I don't think you should go to Vegas until you're of age, but I appreciate what you just did here. And this game was a bloodbath pretty much from the rip. Dallas came out motivated to play for Marshawn Nealand, and they had the T-shirts and all. That was really cool. I like what the Raiders did too with the hotline on the backs of their shirts. I thought that was really nice to see that. Much respect for both teams for this. And Dallas did what they needed to do here. Yes, CeeDee Lamb and George Pickens did not play the first series. They didn't need to. They played every other series after that and put up a bunch of points, especially Pickens, who had a very good night. Lamb got in where he fit in, scoring tutties. Ferguson got in where he fit in with a touchdown. This was a bloodbath that Dallas needed to have happen and needed to do. Yes, their defense played the Raiders, which has 2 really good guys on their offense, but their defense played better, as you probably would expect with Quentin Williams on it. Good work on that front. And the Cowboys got a win today, so desperately needed, not just for their morale, but for their sake to try to catch up and do anything when it comes to the playoffs. They have probably, I would say, the game of their season, where if they win it, I will certainly think that they could make a run. If they lose, their season might be over and done with, and I just don't think they're going to have enough time to make their run. I will talk about it later, either tomorrow or today, depending on when you hear this in Power Rankings. As for my record, it was a pretty solid one. I went 9-4 this past week, and my overall record is 95, 65, and 1. Coming up later today, Power Rankings. We're going to talk about every team and the tiers, obviously. There will definitely be some movement when it comes to title tier, because we saw some teams take some L's and some showdowns. Where will I put the Chiefs? That's one big question I'm going to have to ask. Where will I put the Eagles? They have proven themselves worthy of title tier. I will certainly put them in it. But the real question will be where. Where will the Packers land? Because Green Bay has been sluggish lately, but they did get it done this past week. There will be something I'll have to talk about for Green Bay. But I do know where I'm going to start. Tennessee, you're going to be the first stop of my next train of thought.